Members of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for Her Worshipful, the Mayor of Chorley, Councillor Julia Berry.
Welcome everybody, you may be seated, thank you. All good to go. Please can we confirm the recording has started for the meeting? Perfect, thank you. Thank you to everyone for attending the meeting tonight of the Council on Tuesday the 15th of November 2022. My name is Julia Berry, Councillor Julia Berry I should say, and I am the Mayor of Chorley. Before we start the usual proceedings, I'm sure you've all been extremely saddened to learn of the death of former Mayor and Councillor Barry Hodgson, who was dear to all of us. We will now observe a minute's silence. Ruth. Thank you. Group leaders, you may wish to say a few words. Councillor Bradley.
Madam Mayor, yes, it was a bit of a shock, the news about Barry. In fact, only a week or so before he died, I was, just by coincidence, having a conversation with a very old resident in Chorley who was talking very fondly of Barry and his family from when he was growing up as a child off Brook Street, Madam Mayor. And to have a reputation like that, not only described by this resident as a lovely little lad, I think most of the people in this room who knew Barry would describe him as a lovely bloke. And I think if you can go through life and end up with those epitaphs, I think that's you know, a great thing. Obviously, our thoughts, Madam Mayor, with his wife Kath and the family, and we all in the Labour circles knew Barry and his mum and dad, Jim and Edna, very well, and they were a lovely family, as said. And you know, I know his funeral's later this week, and I'm sure Chorley will show a fitting tribute to Barry and his public service. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Walker would like to say a few words.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's always very difficult when, at my age, you're trying to remember what happened 20 years ago. I haven't seen Barry for about 20 to 25 years. But I do remember Barry because in 1991, when I was first elected to the council, Barry was the Mayor of Chorley. Now, Barry was a happy mayor, although all mayors are happy, only because Barry always had a smile on his face. But whenever you went, whenever you had to talk to him, he had a smile and always a welcome. And that was, I always remember Barry. I always remember going into Astley Park to a Chorley Harrier event, and Barry was presenting the medals. And after when he presented the medal, he came over to talk to us, and I was with my mother at the time. And he spent about 5 minutes talking to my mother. And when he left, my mother turned to me and said, "What a lovely man he is." And many times after that, my mother always used to say, "That gentleman who I spoke to, the Mayor of Chorley, what a lovely man." Barry was a lovely man, a perfect gentleman. May he rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just remember him as being very, very supportive, especially of new councillors, and just making everyone welcome. Was absolutely worked very, very hard. You know, the old committee system existed at the time, and he was a very encouraging of anyone who participated in that committee. He was an excellent councillor and he'll be sadly missed. I do have indication Councillor Whittaker wishes to speak.
Barry was one of my mentors when I first came on the council. And I remember when we first had a delegation to Szekesfehérvár in Hungary, he and Kath came with us, and he was a terrific ambassador for Chorley and for us as well. A lot of the people on that delegation are no longer with us. Lindsay came with us, of course, and Jack Wilson and Mary, I think, as well. But he knew everything about housing, and he gave so much good advice to people as the housing situation was changing, and we will all miss him greatly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whittaker. We have some members joining via Teams, and members of the public are welcome to observe the proceedings on YouTube. So welcome the greater world out there, whoever you are. Right, thanks. So, due to regulations, though, surrounding voting, only those members physically present in the council chamber are able to vote. However, if members at home would like to contribute to the debate, please use the raised hand function on your iPad. For members in the council chamber, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand and I will invite you to speak. When you are speaking, please speak towards the microphone so everyone can hear you clearly. And if anyone is having issues, please flag them up as soon as you can and let Democratic Services know. Just some basic housekeeping now. We are not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarms sound, please exit the way you came in. Please ensure that any mobile phones are switched to silent. If the technology fails, then I will adjourn the meeting for a few minutes to try and resolve the issue. Do we have any apologies? We have Councillor Moss. Okay. Right, let's move to agenda item 1, minutes of the meeting, Tuesday the 27th of September 2022 of the Council, pages 3 to 8. This item is for decision. Please note an amendment is required to remove the Vice Chair from minute number 41, General Purposes Committee. Apologies for this typographical error from Democratic Services. Are there any other issues to raise on the accuracy of the minutes, please? Okay, they're proposed. Go on, Councillor Bradley.
Those minutes are taken as a track record of the meeting held on Tuesday, the 27th of September. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Right, and I wish Councillor Wilson wishes a second.
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So the recommendation is that the minutes of the meeting be approved. Can I have a show of hands for, please? Any against? Any abstentions? Was that an abstention, Councillor Heaton? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Right, so the decision is the minutes of the meeting be approved. Item 2, declaration of any interests. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters contained in this agenda. I notice Councillor Lynch's hand is up. Are there any other declarations of interest? Do you wish to?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Under item 10, acquisition of affordable homes. I believe it may be a conflict as my role with Jigsaw Homes.
Okay, thank you for that. Any more? That's fine. Okay. Item 3, mayoral announcements. Just like to raise the issue of Chorley in Bloom. We won gold. I had the pleasure of attending the Britain in Bloom North West Awards ceremony last month, where Chorley in Bloom won the gold award in the small city. Can you believe it? We're a small city category. Hugely deserved, and congratulations goes to the group who did amazing work across the borough, and all thanks to the council staff involved, and particularly to Iris Smith. On Wednesday the 7th of December, I'm holding a Christmas tea dance with Jason Parkinson from Inspired to Dance in the Lancastrian Suite on Wednesday the 7th of December. Tickets are £6, which includes tea, coffee and delicious cakes. The event starts at 1 p.m. and finishes at 3:30 p.m. The afternoon will also include a raffle, and all proceeds from the event will go to my chosen charities. There will be a Christmas coffee morning on Saturday the 17th of December in aid of my chosen charities again in the Town Hall on Saturday the 17th of December. Entry is free, but donations for drinks and cakes will be greatly appreciated. So get your baking pinnies on and make some delicious cakes for the events. They will be most welcome. There will also be a chocolate tombola. How could you resist that? And also a raffle. The event starts at 9:30 a.m. and will finish by 1 p.m. Like I say, donations of cakes will be most welcome. For further information about any of these events, please contact the Mayor's Secretary, Paula Brindle. Councillor Bradley.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I know it's not usual to comment on mayoral announcements, but I think you should also, Madam Mayor, mention the fact that you drag yourself 15 miles up Rivington Pike on Saturday in the company of 800 Santa Clauses, one of which was myself and one of which was Councillor Lynch. And before he says anything, you were first, Madam Mayor, up there, he was second up there, and I was last up there. So, thank you to all those councillors who sponsored myself, the Mayor and Councillor Lynch. And if you haven't sponsored us yet, you still can, because we raised tens of thousands of pounds for Darien House. And stop hiding your light under a bushel, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I didn't want to embarrass you, Alistair. But I'm sure Councillor Lynch wants to contribute briefly, please.
Madam Mayor, I would have said it was a case of the tortoise and the hare, but I think it was more a case of the tortoise and one used to have hair.
Right. The other thing I'd like to mention, obviously, it's been a very poignant and sombre weekend. I'd just like to commend the council staff and to all you custodians who dutifully, not only in the town centre but beyond in your parishes, did a sterling job in remembrance. And I'd just like, to encourage you to give us feedback, really, because this is something that's, like I say, very poignant and is a lot more accessible these days. And we just want to improve the experience for everybody and be respectful and would welcome feedback, even if you just come to me personally about, how we conduct ourselves. There was an extra emphasis particularly on Friday, Armistice Day, and I think that, it beholds itself really to come into the civic domain really for the future, because we need to do things, like I say, respectfully and make sure we're including every member of the community that wants to contribute to that day. So we have a lot to learn, but I think it was absolutely appropriate, like I say, very poignant, particularly in the circumstances with the death of our beloved Queen. And like I say, just commend everyone that took part. It was absolutely excellent. Thank you. I will now swiftly move to item 4, which is public questions. There have been no questions submitted by members of the public, so we'll proceed to the next agenda item, item 5, Chorley Council's Corporate Strategy 2022 to 2023, pages 9 to 48, and this item is for decision. Councillor Wilson, please can you present this item? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Delighted to present the Council's corporate strategy for the forthcoming year. Before I do so, Madam Mayor, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Vicky and her team for all the work that I've done in supporting the administration and, of course, supporting the opposition during this time in the development of the strategy. Never an easy thing to do, and never an easy thing to do, particularly when we have a lot of change involved, Madam Mayor. So, again, big thank you to Vicky and the team. But also through the work they do all year round in making sure that we deliver. It's very easy to stand up and say the words. Delivery, of course, is the key. And I would just like, Madam Mayor, to echo what Councillor Bradley said about former Councillor Barry Hodson. I was very, very fortunate this year to spend some time with Barry and Kath celebrating the Golden Wedding anniversary when they had a visit to London. And it was lovely to speak to Barry about the work on the council. And the one thing that he was very clear about was how impressed he was with the Labour Council that's been in control since 2012. And he even said some nice things about the leader as well, but there we go. But Barry was a very nice man, as you say, and always very, very supportive. But the one thing that summed up Barry was his commitment to the people he represented and to the wider borough, and that passion to be involved and to help others. And it's that same passion, Madam Mayor, that drives this administration forward. It's what's driven us forward for the last 10 years, and it's what continues to be the driving force now. And over those last 10 years, Madam Mayor, we have taken this council into areas that councils don't traditionally go. And the reason we've done that, Madam Mayor, is because we've addressed what we believe is the need of our people and the residents who live in Chorley. And whether that's taken us into the area of youth provision, which isn't the role of the council, with things such as a youth zone, whether it's meant that because of the sort of cuts we've faced from central government, we've had to create our own income streams. So we've purchased Market Walk, of course, which has been a profitable enterprise for the council and given us the ability to control the offer in our town. Whether it's the building of a new GP surgery, one that's been completed in Whittle, one that's about to be completed in the East Ward of Chorley, or whether that's taken us into areas such as the climate and the tree planting scheme, the wildflower meadows. This council has always sought to deliver on behalf of local people. We listen, we address need, and we make sure that the council acts as a dynamic hub for the local community and acts as a community leader. And that's no different than now, Madam Mayor, and it's no different than the strategy that we're presenting tonight. In the last 12 months, we have delivered on over 80% of our key projects are done. We have made sure that we've been within target on those measures in terms of making sure that we're performing during the year. And that has been a fantastic challenge on the backdrop of COVID and the COVID recovery programme that we all had to implement. It's been seen massive changes in our community. We've had the renovation of Astley Hall, a beautiful now brick facade. We've had major events there, such as the Speakers G7 conference. We've had visitors coming through the doors now since it's reopened in May. That is a major, major improvement in our heritage. We've had the refurbishment of the markets. Members can see clearly now that the improvements there on the market, not quite complete, but very nearly done so. We've had the development of Strawberry Meadows and the building out of Strawberry Meadows, so more people can be employed locally, more businesses can operate from Chorley. We've again extended our climate work, with again the tree planting scheme, but also working in local communities, whether it's on wildflower meadows, improvements to rivers, improvements to our natural resource. And then we've also made sure that our events programme has continued to expand and continue to improve. Most recently, of course, the firework display. I won't say silent fireworks, Madam Mayor, because of course they weren't silent, but they were pet-friendly fireworks, and there's a big difference there. But they seem to be extremely popular, both with the people who attended and those at home who had pets. And we continue now into Christmas. I know we have a paper later on the Christmas programme, so I won't stray into that, Madam Mayor. But we continue with our programme of events, which again attracts people to the area, supports the local economy, but also provides genuine entertainment and fun for people who live in our borough, which is an important element of what we do. So turning to this year's corporate strategy, Madam Mayor, we continue to adapt, we continue to change to address local need. As I say, keeping in touch with what residents want and making sure that this council is at the forefront of that change. And therefore, we have 4 priority areas on our new look corporate strategy. And they are very simply, Madam Mayor, we have housing where residents can live well. We have a green and sustainable borough. We have an enterprising economy with vibrant local centres in urban and rural areas. And we have healthy, safe and engaged communities. And under that title, under those 4 new priority areas, Madam Mayor, we have a number of key projects. And each one designed, as I say, to address that local need and ensure that our residents are getting the very best outcomes that they can. As times change, Madam Mayor, our priorities have changed, and that's why we see a much greater emphasis on housing where residents can live well. The need for more affordable homes, the need for more specific types of housing to support people with particular needs, the need to ensure that we have the extra care facility at Tatton brought online, and the need to ensure that we support people in their own homes, and at a time when energy bills are going up rapidly, as we are all seeing, to support people as much as we can who are facing those crippling increases in local bills. All those projects, Madam Mayor, come under that first heading of the extra support for housing, and each one exceptionally important in terms of addressing local need. On the green agenda, Madam Mayor, we continue with our promise to plant a tree for every resident of this borough, just over 116,000. We had another tree giveaway on Saturday. I know that a number of our local councils attended, and again, that proved exceptionally popular. We are going to support businesses as well, Madam Mayor, because it's very well individually as residents that we do what we can for the green agenda, but it's important that we bring businesses online as well, and that's what we intend to do with the sustainable energy packages for business. We have to lead by example, Madam Mayor. We have to improve our council buildings. We have already done some work on that in the past, such as the solar panels, but there's a lot more to do in terms of decarbonisation, in terms of sweating our assets as well, to actually ensure that we maximise the use of renewable energy sources, and we develop the use of the green energy, as I say, in the borough with working with businesses and residents to encourage more people to engage. We are always, Madam Mayor, as a council, interested in supporting local businesses, interested in keeping employment and skills in this borough. That still remains a focus for this year on the council, and therefore, as we say in the papers that you can read, we're launching a skills and jobs programme. That's essential because the one thing we continue to receive from businesses, we know the people are there, but they're not there with the skills that we need in our business operating here at this moment. So we need to be able to match up the two so that local people know that their employers are out there looking for them, and that likewise employers know where to go in order to ensure that they can mould and influence perhaps the direction of travel that young people take, particularly when they're looking to enter the employment market. We'll continue to finish the work at Strawberry Meadows, which I made reference to before, and open that facility. That works because, again, it brings people into the borough, it gives them meaningful employment, and it also gives an income to this council, Madam Mayor, which then allows us to reinvest in services that we all benefit from. And we also want to look at supporting businesses in local service centres, so not just one scheme such as Strawberry Meadows, or just businesses who operate in the town centre, but those who are also in the villages and surrounding parishes as well, Madam Mayor. The final area of healthy, safe and engaged communities, Madam Mayor, well, that'll see us do a number of work on digital connectivity, hoping to look at the cost of living, which I mentioned before, and an action plan there to support people, supporting families, young families as well. That's very important for the council, as well as delivering the health and wellbeing programme. Some work that's already been developed in the communities team, but again, as we look at the needs of the local community, we look at the challenges that people face, whether it is the cost of living, whether it is dealing with access to health services, whether it is challenges posed through mental health difficulties that people may have, we have got to try and act as a way to communicate and direct and support people who have the variety of needs. So I think this plan does just that. I think this strategy identifies what the needs are, whether that's in housing, whether that's in jobs, whether that's in health, or whether that comes back to the broader issue, which probably underpins everything we do, which is the future of our climates and the future of the air that we breathe. This council remains at the forefront of that work, but it's not going to be easy, Madam Mayor. It's not going to be easy for two factors. One, we do have a cost of living crisis. That affects us as well as affecting people. The second thing, Madam Mayor, is we have a statement being made by the Chancellor on Thursday. We all know what's coming. We all know that taxes are going to go up, and we all know that public spending is going to be cut. And I believe from reliable sources in Whitehall that the government think there's still plenty of fat on the bones of local government. So we shall see. I don't look forward to that statement, Madam Mayor. More importantly, because I don't think we'll get the detail on Thursday, I don't look forward to the government settlement, which will be announced just before Christmas, as usual, just before Christmas, if we're lucky. And I think that'll give us a great challenge. But the one thing I do know, Madam Mayor, is that's not new territory for this council or this administration. We have faced a backdrop of government cuts. We have faced a huge reduction in budget, but we have delivered. We've delivered in the areas that I mentioned earlier. We've delivered in the areas that we're still looking at now. And I have the great confidence, both in this administration and our officer team, that despite those challenges, everything in this corporate strategy can be delivered and will be delivered, and we will continue to make sure that we support and deliver on behalf of the residents of Chorley. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Could I invite Councillor Bradley to second the report prior to debate? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Peter for that excellent summarisation of what we've done over the last few years and what we intend to do over the next few years, and thank you to the officers who supported Peter and his team putting this together. This isn't the work of, unfortunately, Peter, the work of one person. This is the work of our group. Everybody's had their input into it. As Madam Mayor was reminding me at the weekend as we strolled up Rivington, they could always have more input, and any ideas are always welcome because we don't have any kind of monopoly on good ideas. What we are facing, and Peter referred to it, is the after effects of a number of crises. The crises of COVID that gripped this country, the crisis of a war in Ukraine that sent energy bills soaring and has driven inflation, and the crisis, Madam Mayor, of the dying days of a Tory government in Westminster, which is resulting in chaos. And Madam Mayor, I was the pleasure today to be at a roundtable event, as you're probably aware, many of you have mentioned it before, roundtable event with businesses and organisations across Chorley and South Ribble to understand how we can help them as councils, both ourselves and South Ribble, our partners in South Ribble. And today's focus, Madam Mayor, was all about recruitment and skills, with a particular focus on public sector. So we had representatives there of the NHS, of the Hospital Teaching Trust, of Leisure Hall and the Brothers of Charity, of the CAB, and employers like Leyland Daff and other large companies. And what they all said is, we cannot thrive in a chaotic environment. We cannot thrive on that chaos. But what we have here, Madam Mayor, is a blueprint for Chorley for the next months and years. And working with South Ribble, we have a blueprint for Chorley and South Ribble. So my summing up today was, we can't change the world, we can't go out there and run the country, that's somebody else's job. But what we can do is try and set a stable framework for organisations to do what they do really well out there. And what they're all crying out for is staff who have stable backgrounds, so good housing, good health, and good educations and all the rest of it, that we are also there to help to deliver. I notice we have a lot of our friends here with the yellow vests on, the yellow jumpers on tonight. Yeah, we are facing upheaval in the health sector. ICSs, ICPs, ICBs, all the rest of it. Who knows what the next acronym is going to be? What we're sure of, it's going to push people further away from health and make it more difficult for them to access services, because the fragmentation of health services is not the answer. So what we need to do is keep reminding people of that, keep focusing on our community's health and general well-being, which is why we've made the investments we have as a council. So what we need to do is support, in my view, those 5 key priorities that we've outlined. It may be fortuitous that some of the big projects we've previously done, Madam Mayor, have come to a completion, just as we are seeing prices soar and the cost of borrowing also rise, which I'm sure we'll discuss at some point later this evening. But there is still things for us to do. They may not be the larger, grandiose projects. They are the down and dirty stuff that we need to do within our communities to get things done. This administration, Madam Mayor, stands ready to do that alongside the people of Chorley and across our borough. But what we need to do is have that structure and that solid framework. I think this does that. I'm sure it can be improved, and we will improve it in due course, but it's a good start, and what we need to do is focus on some delivery. The measures that are in there, we think, reflect what members have raised as their priorities, so we need to see us hitting those targets, and that's the challenge for a new chief executive, a new regime in the officer side, and I sound like Lindsay Hoyle now, setting him a challenge before I even started the job. But that's what we need to do. We need to challenge our team to deliver the best they possibly can. Because, to be quite honest, Madam Mayor, our residents deserve it. And therefore, I'm more than happy to second the proposed strategy. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. I'd like now to invite members to make any comments. Would you like to raise your hands if you wish to contribute to a debate? Councillor Cullens.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Just before I move on to the corporate strategy, it's just a request from the administration that one of the difficulties we've had in the past is when items are appearing below the line, which I can understand for the corporate reasons regarding money, but just to reflect on the way that the county council actually do, that they split the debate from the money. And I think it would have helped somewhat tonight if we would have had that opportunity to discuss the affordable housing section in part 1 in public and then discuss the finance after. It's just a request. In moving on to the into the strategy, could I just say that one of the things that from our side we'd said this year in your corporate strategy is there's much to be admired. You know, there are some tremendous things in there, but I think, as you've alluded to, the devil will be in the detail once we see the targets and once we understand exactly what's happening with the economy, etc. Because in normal circumstances, it would be fantastic, but we're not in normal circumstances at the moment. Like Councillor Wilson said, we don't know what's going to happen with the economy. We don't know quite what's going to happen with interest rates. It'll be very interesting, as you say, what will come out of the statement and the settlement. But we are in the background of previous reports that we've seen before this council of a £287,000 requirement for funding. which potentially could rise to 1 million. We're currently paying debt interest of 1.7 million, and that's forecast to rise. Reports going to the shared services, dissatisfaction rate of 15.7%. That's 1 in 6 people are dissatisfied with the services here. An abandoned call rate of 35%. The number of calls answered in 90 seconds, 15%. So there's one thing we can certainly support in this strategy, and that's the item to see improved services. But there's one thing we can't agree to in this, and it really is, quite honest, almost only one thing. And that's this council, yet again, being the biggest property owner in Lancashire. And I think that's what we're trying to head for. We're fully in support of affordable homes. We want to see more affordable homes. And I think the target of affordable homes that was already set was too low. We should be looking to work more with the private sector and increase that. But we can't see debt increase, more requirement for revenue to fund something that will be a long term in return. It's against record borrowing. We've got departments under strain at the moment, and by looking to this affordable housing and us becoming a landlord in some way, it puts more strain. And one of those is the commercial and assets department. We've at senior level, we've got problems. We've got problems in recruiting right the way across the organisation. And if we look at what some of those issues that we'll be discussing later with the leisure contract, the late delivery of Tatton, Strawberry Fields, over budget in project after project. And now, if we're looking to actually add to that in this affordable homes, it's going to put greater strain on there. So one of the things we decided that against this background, against the background of unknowns and against the background of this, literally of how the services need improvement, we chose not to do an alternative strategy, to ask them to actually spend their time in helping us develop a strategy. And for several reasons as well. One, we'll come up with the ideas, you'll pinch them, as you've done in the past several times. So for us, it's not the right time to raise that. We know that if we could put an alternative strategy, the chances of getting it voted through would be slim. So again, what was the point of asking the officers? We'll produce our alternative strategy for the electorate when the time is right. But one thing we would say, as I said right at the beginning, there's a lot in this strategy to applaud, and it really is just one issue that we have. So we chose, as I said, not to do an alternative, but we do applaud on some of the things.
Thank you, Councillor Collins, for your exclamation. Thank you. Is anyone else wishing to speak? Thank you, Councillor. Yeah. Have you made your mind up there? Is it Councillor? Councillor Boardman, please speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, as Councillor Cullen said, I highly applaud your budget, actually, Councillor Wilson. There's a number of things in the corporate strategy, a number of things in there that we put in ours last year. Even the colours are very similar. So I must admit, I really like that. I had to go back to our strategy last year just to double check a few things, but actually some of the words are extracted verbatim, word for word. So I'm quite pleased, actually. Sitting chuffed. There is a couple of things that I'd like to ask you, though, and they are serious. Under project delivery, in the deliver affordable housing within the borough in paragraph 30, surely that should say deliver additional affordable housing within the borough. We have been delivering affordable housing, but not at the rate that we need to. And that's the crisis and that's the issue here. I'd just like to ask a question. I know there's no detail in this as yet, but what is the basics of actually doing that? Because we've got, I think, on our new local plan, looking around 117 homes, affordable homes to deliver per year. Just want a little bit of detail around that, of how we're actually going to do that, because we can't do that all on our own. We need to partner private developers, community housing associations in order to deliver that. So that's just the first question for that one. I can come back if that's okay, if I don't mind answering that one.
That's okay. Is this your whole team, because Councillor Riggett is desperate to speak? No, right. So do we have any more people?
I've
any
got one
more
more question to come back with, Madam Mayor.
Yes, please.
Okay, lovely. That's great. Okay, the other question was in relation to, it's on page 17 and it's under your healthy, safe and engaged communities. The increased digital connectivity in rural areas. Absolutely applaud that, because where I live it's absolutely shocking We don't even have 3G, never mind 4G or 5G. You have to literally walk in someone's house and pick up a Wi-Fi signal to make a telephone call. It's poor. But my problem with that is we've got it down as, the project will be worked through with the Rural Prosperity Fund. Looking at the Rural Prosperity Fund, it's not actually for that kind of project. It is for connectivity. However, the fund clearly states that this is for businesses or community purposes, partnerships with the councils. It also clearly states that it's there to invest in micro and small enterprises. And it clearly states the funding must be used on capital projects. This means that these are physical projects such as buildings or equipment. If Councillor Wilson can just come back and let me know how actually the improvements to broadband and digital is going to be delivered under that strategy and structure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Boardman. Does anyone else wish to contribute? Do you wish to answer those questions now?
I do, yeah.
There you go. Thank
Happy
you.
to do so. I'll come to Councillor Boardman's first, if that's all right, while it's fresh in my mind, and I can come back and address Councillor Cullins's points. The first point, Councillor Boardman, you are right. First of all, it should say deliver more affordable homes, not a delivery of affordable homes. You are right that we have been delivering some affordable homes, and that, while we've delivered some like 1,300 affordable homes in the last 10, 11 years, that is not enough. That is not enough to address local need. And it probably is symptomatic of what you do if you leave it to the market. Because what the market always says is, a developer puts in and they come to this council and they say, yeah, you've got a policy of 30% affordable housing, and we get the planning application through, and then they come back 4 months afterwards and say, oh, on viability grounds, we can't deliver all those affordable homes. And we know because of the rules that are set by the government that that is a legitimate argument, and they drive us right down into the ground, and you end up with something like 10 or 15%. Not good enough. Not good enough. So there's 2 or 3 means, Councillor Boardman. One relates to the item that's coming up later, to which Councillor Cullins referred, which is actually about increasing the provision of affordable by taking direct action ourselves as a council to provide those homes. So that can either be done through a direct purchase. We can do it when new homes are built. We could also, in theory, and I say in theory, allocate land specifically for development of affordable homes, if you wanted to do your own project or a project with a partner, or, as you say, in conjunction with a housing provider. We also need to get the local plan through, because quite clearly in the local plan, we need to then make sure that we have that provision set. Now, even though I argue about viability, at least it still makes sure that we're delivering some affordable homes, and we can go back and have the arguments with the government on those rules that surround that issue, and whether we can strengthen it and give councils genuine power to insist on a greater portion of affordable homes. So I think there's a couple of mechanisms by which we can do that and which we intend to do that. And as I say, I think we're already making a start with that on the item that you'll see that we'll debate later in the meeting. In terms of the second point, the Rural Prosperity Fund, rather, I think we've got something in the region of 450,000 on that of that fund. Now, when you read out the criteria there, Councillor Boardman, that didn't, to me, deter what our aim is there in terms of getting better broadband connectivity, because it would allow you to have capital expenditure for the purposes of providing the equipment and the broadband connections, working with local businesses to do that. So it wouldn't necessarily be the council that delivers it, but perhaps the council in conjunction with partners. Happy to discuss details of that in a more, another time. But as far as I'm aware, that does still fit in with this aim of what we are trying to achieve. And let's say working with those locals, I say smaller businesses in particular, to provide that in rural communities. I think that's a good thing. I'm not going to criticise the fact that we've got that money. I'm not going to criticise that scheme. And I think it's quite right that we're looking to spend that and spend it quickly in the areas that you've identified. So I'd suggest that we work together on that one, because I think it's in both our interests. But happy to discuss it in more detail outside. Coming to Councillor Cullen's general points, I think, well, I'll take the compliment first of all. Always good. Never a bad thing. In terms of the areas that you highlight, Councillor Cullins, I think there was a general issue about the capacity of this council and about the challenges that we've got. As you know, I wouldn't disagree with the fact that this is very challenging and we have got issues within the council. What I would say is this strategy has been developed in the knowledge of those issues. We still think, and maybe we're being ambitious, but I'm not going to apologise for being ambitious, we still think we can deliver this. And some of those challenges that we face in certain areas, we think we're addressing now as an authority, so that we can actually make sure that the people in place to deliver on what we're doing. The proof's going to be in the pudding, obviously. We'll have to wait and see. Good news on the abandoned calls rate. That's the last figures I had. It was down to 21%, so it's coming in the right direction. Still too high, but moving in the right direction. And what I would say, Madam Mayor, is on dissatisfaction, it was this administration that decided to measure dissatisfaction specifically, because it's actually a negative question. So if anything, you're encouraging a more negative approach. At 15%, I assume then that 85% of residents who deal with us are satisfied, which I think is pretty high. And I also know that it's certainly a lot higher than when the Conservatives were in administration, because it used to sort of sit around at about the low 70s, about 70% satisfaction. So I know that it's much better than that. But as always, as we said before, we set ourselves a challenge and we look to improve. If it's 15%, that's too high. We want to drive that down, and we will try and do our very best to drive it down. I think on the backdrop of all the challenges we outlined and we both agreed on, I don't think that's too bad. Coming to your broader issue, Councillor Cullen's property ownership. I mean, this is where I think we fundamentally always disagreed between the administration and the opposition. What I would say is what I've said in the past. That property ownership has made significant revenue for this council. So we do own Market Walk Shopping Centre. What does that do? It gives us the ability to influence and encourage the right type of mix into the town, so we give a greater offer for people. We've extended Market Walk. We've got a cinema that we've never had for 50 years. We've got M&S. We've got great restaurants. We're also making a profit out of it, Madam Mayor. This council makes a profit out of Market Walk, over £1 million a year, just prior to COVID. That's still already, even during COVID, making sort of £600,000 a year, and it'll bounce back. TVS, we purchased TVS. Again, £450,000 income from that to this council. These are significant sums, and it's a win-win. We own the property. We get the profit that we then invest back, and that's after paying the debt to which Councillor Cullen's referred. That's after paying the interest on that debt. In terms of the housing, again, it's about the need. We're identifying the need. There is a need for more housing, of affordable housing in this borough. So we're going to take action. Again, that housing is an asset. Again, there is an income coming from that. So, as a principle, are you scared of owning lots of property? If you are, fine, back off. But we're not, because we think it delivers what people need and it's beneficial to this council. And as Councillor Bradley quite rightly said earlier, if we're not going to do this, what's the alternative? And are we actually against, and are the opposition members saying, we're against providing more affordable housing above and beyond what's already being delivered? Because again, if you are, let's debate that out there amongst the people who can't get on the housing ladder. Let's debate that amongst those people who are actually homeless. Let's debate that amongst even others who have particular and specific needs and need the supported accommodation. I would say to the opposition members, our reasons for doing it are justified, our reasons are there based on local need, and I'm more than comfortable with what we're proposing. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Riggett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As always, Councillor Wilson always gives a great speech. He's good with his words, he's fluent at it, but he's also, I think, very careful with the words he chooses. I think the use of the word deliver a lot in his speech, and this is somewhat subjective. I'm not sure whether delivering more affordable homes is buying ones that were already built and already committed for that. That's a subjective view. I think there's a couple of other examples. I mean, residents regularly ask, again, they're not for this strategy, but you know, Tatton should have been delivered some time ago. A number of other projects should have been delivered some time ago. Residents regularly ask, when is Milestone Meadow Play area being updated and delivered, even though they've been promised for 10 years? When is Brookshire Parkway actually being delivered? You know, it's actually, delivery is actually getting it over the line, not publishing it year after year, saying we are going to eventually do this. And I think there's a couple of examples of that in this report. We talk about digital skills. We talked about that quite fluently. But we had a programme that went to Cabinet, the update on the corporate strategy last week, and that programme isn't being delivered. And it's not even close to being delivered. So what have we done? We've chosen to stop measuring it. Take from that what you will. There's not a line to say, actually, we're going to improve this, we're going to drive this forward. We just stop measuring it. And another one I'll potentially draw Councillor Wilson's reference to in particular is, let me just find my page number, give me a second. I think it's at the bottom of page 11, Astley Hall. You remember we had a debate 6 months ago about the charges, where we thought that wasn't appropriate. We said it probably wouldn't work. And your report here says, after 2 quarters, we have generated 4,694 tickets, generating over £10,000 in revenue. I'm not sure whether that's another not quite accurate representation of the report, because the report you brought to us in February said you would take over £70,000 or take £70,000 of revenue over a full year. So to me, that you promised isn't being delivered again, unless that is that a mistake. So I think I welcome you to whether you're going to reconsider that point, but actually clarify actually when something is being delivered, rather we said we were going to do it, but actually haven't. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Wilson.
Delighted, Madam Mayor. As I said at the start, 80% of the projects have been delivered. I think Councillor Riggett is right in one respect, which is you can get sort of carried away with, not carried away, but you can always talk about schemes. Some are in development, some are actually happening. And the Milestone Meadow Play Area is a classic example, because the Milestone Meadow Play Area has been referred to a long time, but only recently, as Councillor Riggett will remember, did we actually put the budget to it. And that's the difference. This council, this administration is going to spend the money in Exton and make sure that the new play area at Milestone Meadow is there for the use of the residents. On Tatton, and you quite rightly mentioned Tatton, Councillor Riggett. Yeah, I mean, as I said at the last Cabinet meeting, and that was in public, I'm disappointed it's behind schedule, but I'm really excited about Tatton and what it's going to provide. And yes, it's a few months behind schedule, but let's just remind everyone while we're talking about it, what's going to be provided. So a new GP's practice, Madam Mayor, as you know as a councillor, former councillor in the area, the GP centre further down on Eves Lane was, well, let's use a simple word, disgraceful in terms of the actual facility. Not in terms of the people who work there, but in terms of the facility, was appalling. Absolutely appalling. And in probably one of the most deprived areas of Chorley, where health needs are at the maximum, we had probably the worst GP's practice in the borough. Not from us, that's from the health service. So what have we done? As I said before, we take this council into new areas, we address the need, and we provide a new GP centre. Next to that, we're going to have a pharmacy. Next to that, and on the back of that, we have a new extra care supported living scheme, just like the one on Primrose, which we already know. I was down at Primrose on Friday, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic to speak to the residents there and see how much they're enjoying it and how they benefit from that accommodation. We're going to have another one at Tatton. And in addition to that, Madam Mayor, we have a new community centre. We have new play facilities for young people, so that Tatton itself still remains the hub of the local community, with all these additional improved facilities on top. Again, for some of the people who need it the very, very most. So yes, we're slightly behind, Councillor Riggett, and I'm not happy about that. I'm never happy about anything going off target or off budget, but I'm happy about this scheme and excited about what it will deliver for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years for local people. Yes, I am, and it's going to be a flagship scheme for this council when it opens. Digital skills, very similar. I think Councillor Riggett, you said I'm careful, or pick up on my words, I'll pick up on yours, that we're not delivering it. We are delivering digital skills courses, because as you recall from the last Cabinet report, there was 75 people who had taken it up. It's below the target. I want more people to do it, but to say we're not doing it at all is not true. We are delivering a scheme. We need to improve the number of people who sign up to it so that more people can have that access. That's the key. So if we're picking up on words, let's just correct that one as well, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Morwood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just an update for Councillor Riggett. Milestone Meadow, work begins on Monday and it's expected to take 4 weeks, hopefully.
Great. Anybody else wish to contribute to the debate? Councillor Beaver.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I received a phone call this week from one of my guys within our area that I refer to in my head as Mr. Angry, and nothing's ever right. And he wanted to know what we were going to do about the switching on of the Christmas lights. And I thought, here we go, he's not going to want it. It's going to cost too much. He wanted it. He was really looking forward to it. And he wanted us to find money for it. Now, you mentioned that these are not normal times. But the closer we can get it to normal times, the better for people out there. I see things going on in this chamber, and I find it strange. From my military background, if you go into a garrison, the infantry will be in that pub, the artillery in that pub, and the tank people in that pub. And if you go in, you might get a fight. But when they go on the battlefield, there's only one enemy, and it's opposing them. We are not the enemy. We should do things together. I don't think there's one person in this room who doesn't want what's best for Chorley. And I don't think we're working the best to get it. So when you say we're not going to do an alternative plan, may I suggest that next time you look into that camera and you tell the public, we can't be bothered. They'll pinch our ideas. Let's work together. There must be more than a few times over the years where the leaders of each group get together and you can put your ideas, which you have done, because we've pinched them. We've written them word for word, as we've heard. Let's work together. There's one enemy. It's the cost of living, it's prices going up, and it's people who haven't got money, who may not even be able to get to the discounted Christmas fair this weekend, or Christmas weekend. But let's do what we can for the betterment of them. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Beaver. I believe you wish to come back in. Thank you, Councillor Collins.
I do, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure Councillor Beaver was actually listening to what I said earlier, because we're in support of the vast majority of what you've got in the corporate strategy. We have an issue with one item on it. That's what I say, it would be pointless as putting an alternative there when we're in agreement with most that's in that strategy. So, sorry if you misunderstood what I said.
Does anybody else wish to contribute to the debate? Councillor Neville.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to say I do have confidence in the Council's ability to deliver this corporate strategy. Similarly, I agree with Councillor Cullen's point that actual issues like affordable housing should be debated because there's a clear public interest in doing so, whilst accepting that issues over the budgets should remain in the confidential part of the meeting. My question, Madam Mayor, is to deal with the cost of living and what is actually in this corporate strategy to address that in concrete terms, in meaningful terms that will make a difference to the people who are suffering most. I know on page 17 it addresses the cost of living action plan, which was decided earlier this year. Times have changed, circumstances have changed, interest rates are going up, fuel prices have changed so much, mortgages and rents are increasing. What is actually going to be done to help people in meaningful terms as part of this corporate strategy? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Neville. Do I have someone else who wishes to respond?
Yeah, you can do.
Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think what this framework does, and you refer to the cost of living plan that we've already got, which was put into place by Councillor Murray probably a month or two ago, which is what we think is going to happen, gives us that framework to deal with what comes along. Obviously, we are seeing things develop as the winter progresses, but as we all know from the temperature in here tonight, it's still quite mild. People haven't put the heating on fully in places. We're not seeing the full effects of some of these things. So what we need to be is agile and have that framework in place. That is why the focus, particularly on serving communities within the communities, is what we're all about. Councillor Murray's done that. Councillor Murray also alluded at the Exec Cabinet meeting, I think, or through Councillor Wilson, around the plan that we want to work with, alongside colleagues at County Council and other districts, around warm spaces and all the rest of it, is to put those facilities in the communities and to spend that money in the communities. That is a bit of a shift in our plan from what we've previously done. We've been a little bit top-down and do it centrally. There's a bit of a change in focus here, and Councillor Wilson outlined that, because we are seeing that change in requirements, Madam Mayor. Specifically what those things are, we ain't going to prescribe in within this plan, because at the moment we still haven't seen the full manifestation of that. But as Councillor Wilson's already referred to, that is about making sure that people still stay healthy, that people stay in decent housing, because they are one of the main determinants of health, and also to stay in employment or to be economically active, which is also a mainstay of people's well-being. So I think we need to keep focused on that. And if I may, Madam Mayor, just to add to what Councillor Wilson's already responded to Councillors Riggett, Boardman and Cullens, the question for me, sitting there listening to the debate that you were just having, is, do the party opposite believe in intervening in the housing market? Previously, they have supported some of our interventions to provide specialist housing for specialist people. Now, if the market is failing, and we see that the market is failing in social housing, who tells us that? The RPs who sit there and say, government policy, not from the hiatus government that we had for a few weeks, but the people who are in charge now, Rishi Sunak and Michael Gove, is deterring them from building social housing in Chorley, in South Ribble and across the north of England, because it's penalising them. They are not going to carry on building properties when the government is saying they can't keep the revenue from it, because government policy has changed, which disincentivises RPs from building houses. That is crazy. That cannot last. So what this council has said is, If we just accept that situation and accept there's going to be a standoff between the RPs and the government for the next however many years, given the pressure on local housing stocks, as evidenced through the Select Move report that came back from the scrutiny group that some of the members opposite served on, we have a backlog in housing. We need to deal, and Councillor Boardman has raised this in this very chamber. What are we going to do about it? So what we're going to do about it is what Councillor Wilson has outlined in the strategy and what we'll debate later on. So which housing are you happy for the council to provide? You're happy for extra care? Because I think you voted for some of that, or some of you voted for it, I can't remember, it's a bit of a mixed approach. You're happy to vote for refugee housing, but you're not happy to vote for housing for poor people in Chorley. Which is it? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Would anyone like to respond or contribute to the debate, or are we at the end? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was just to reassure councillors that part of the cost of living plan, one section is about information gathering and monitoring, so we'll be aware of any gaps that may be out there and we can identify it, and there is flexibility with the plan to respond, so it remains relevant to help people.
Okay, thanks very much for all the contributions. We're now at the end of the debate on this proposal, and recommendations are at paragraphs pages 9 to 48 that the corporate strategy 2022-23 be approved. Can I have a show of hands for, please? Thank you. Against? Thank you. Do we have any abstentions? Thanks very much. We'll now swiftly move on to item 6, the update on Christmas proposals, pages 49 to 54. This item is for decision. Councillor Bradley, please can you present the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just give me a moment to get my papers up to date. Thank you, Madam Mayor. This proposal, as detailed, Madam Mayor, in the recommendations in paragraphs 2 and 3, which is to note the activities planned for Christmas celebrations in Chorley and to agree the measures set out in the report with regards to energy efficiency, obviously is brought about by us highlighting what we're trying to do within our events programme to demonstrate our commitment to working with suppliers to reduce energy consumption as part of our climate change and energy efficiency aims and objectives under our climate emergency response, Madam Mayor. The reasons for it are detailed in paragraphs 7 and 8 in summary, and the programme of events is detailed in paragraph 13. And I think it's important, Madam Mayor, to highlight that this isn't our programme. We will enact it, but this is fed through to us ultimately, and some members opposite sit on that grouping from the town centre team, which is influenced by our town centre traders and the people who are active in our town centre, who have been through, Madam Mayor, a difficult period in COVID. They've proved more resilient than many other towns across Lancashire. And as Councillor Wilson referred to earlier, Chorley's town centre is bouncing back better than most. Now, they have specifically requested us to follow a certain track on our Christmas events and our Christmas programme of things, particularly the large-scale attraction. But what this report, Madam Mayor, seeks to do is to inform members of what we're doing, particularly around lighting and Christmas tree lighting and decorations, to try to get a reduced carbon footprint, and also around the fact that most of the attractions that we bring to the town centre have a requirement for energy. It refers, Madam Mayor, in the report that subject to the levelling up, if levelling up is still a thing, bid being successful, we may get the opportunity to put some more fixed power points in our town centre, but generally, with the flexibility to put attractions where they cause the least disruption to parking, etc., we tend to need a temporary supply. And therefore, temporary generators, unfortunately, are a fact of life. We would love to have solar-powered, wind-powered, environmentally renewable generators, or very, very low-carbon generators, but they do not exist, Madam Mayor. So what we need to do is use the most efficient ones we can, and as paragraph 28 through to 32 detail, we are looking to use one of the most fuel-efficient generators possibly we can for the duration of the Christmas event. We are looking to minimise our carbon emissions and the council's energy usage through that period. But, Madam Mayor, we have faced criticism in the past from members opposite after the decisions have been made. So here's an opportunity to raise those concerns now, to get it out into the open, and to discuss whether, to quote Councillor Beaver, life does have to carry on a little bit as normal, and it's not a perfect world. We will do the best very best we can to have a low carbon Christmas, but unfortunately we're not in that position technology-wise at this moment in time. And therefore, Madam Mayor, if members opposite have a problem with this, by all means raise it now, because what our side of the council is saying is we want to see this, we want to work with this with the traders, we will do everything we can and keep doing what we can over future years to further reduce those carbon footprint of this council, but we can't do it immediately straight away. The technology doesn't allow that. So happy to move the recommendations. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Councillor Wilson, are you happy to second the report?
Happy to second the report, Madam Mayor. Councillor Bradley's outlined very clearly why we brought it here and what we're doing. What I'll say is this is hopefully going to be another successful Christmas for the town, and look forward to all the Christmas events that are outlined in the paper, and I'm sure that we'll be encouraging everyone to spend the money in time and surely. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak? Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have, on occasion in the past, been willing to criticise reports that have had errors in or that have been poorly structured. And so I think it's just fair that we should make some more positive comments when they are deserved. So I'd like to congratulate the officers who put this report together for properly considering the various options, for not just going for other options considered being to cancel Christmas, but also to work through the issue of environmental concerns, to consider them in depth, to consider them properly. We look forward, hopefully, to future reports on other issues that come to the Council, having similar considerations, perhaps when something comes on the flower show and so on. We'd like to know similar levels of detail and have similar levels of consideration. So thank you for that. I'm told that the UK contributes about 1% to carbon emissions globally. I'm sure Councillor Clifford can correct me whether I'm wrong or not. And obviously Chorley's contribution is going to be a very, very small proportion of that. And what Chorley Council and traders do at Christmas is going to be a very, very small proportion of that. So we've got to weigh these things up. We've got to see what the pluses are, what the minuses are, and we're grateful that that has been done. And I'm sure the Council's Environment spokesman will be fully on board with this way of doing things and acknowledging that sometimes the local economy does have to come first. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Is that Councillor Boardman? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, again, I'm all supportive of Christmas. I don't want to cancel it either, to be honest with you. Quite like seeing a little train going around the town. I think it's fantastic. There is one question, and it's... I'd love to have a drive of it, to be honest, but there you go. Ice rink. I mention the ice rink every year, and I'm going to mention it again because I just wish we'd think a little bit more outside the box with this one. I take it the ice rink is going on the square here. Am I correct, or are we going to move it down to the market this year? That is a question, general question, because there's nothing in the report to tell me where it's actually going.
Okay, Councillor Bradley?
Yes, it's on the Cleveland Street car park, so the new car park down the bottom end where it was last year. Okay. You're behind the times, Councillor Boardman. It used to be there, but now it's there, I think.
All right, is that okay?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so, doesn't really matter where it is. I'm heading to a point where, yet again, there's a diesel generator. Now, I mentioned this 2 years ago. There is capacity in the grid in Chorley Town Centre to bring an electrical cable into whichever area you wish. And we know this. We've got capacity in the building here which is unused and has huge amounts of power in it. I believe there's 2 3-phase supplies in that. There's a 3-phase supply in here as well, and there is one in Union Street as well. Over the Christmas period, lots of these buildings don't get used, so they do not draw the amount of electricity that's actually required for during the summer months, and wherever it is. I'd just like to ask the question, has the council actually looked into putting in a temporary electrical supply through Electricity North West to actually get rid of the generator requirement? It could quite easily supply the 200 kVA that's required. Just like to know if that's been looked at, Madam Mayor.
I'm at the edge of my electrical knowledge on this, but a feeder pillar is what you're after, basically, to do it. Now, a lighting feeder pillar, I don't think gives enough power to a straightforward, and that's what we looked at, getting a boost on a lighting feeder pillar. So it was insufficient. There are risks with it. Also, it's inflexible in terms of the location of where we are putting it. And obviously, each year, depending on what's going on, we have to keep to moving it around. It wasn't worth the expense of putting a feed in like you were after to what is effectively a temporary car park, as you'll appreciate. So to come here and say we're going to spend this much money, and you know very well, Councillor Boardman, the cost of putting services into places, to then, if we had got the funding for a luff bid, then that's going to be ripped up and scrapped. So we had considered it. We'd considered it previously, and every year we have a debate about actually where we site the ice rink, because there are pros and cons of siting it there or wherever, because of what else is going on. So we have considered it. Did we consider it right at the end of this, just before Christmas? Again, probably not, but I can find out when we did last do it, and it's two things. One is the size of supply you need, and two is how do you actually get it across to where you're getting it from. It's not quite as simple as you make out, and therefore the worst thing we could have is an ice rink that's melting halfway through Christmas because whatever we've put in is not sufficient. So, but I can get you the details from the officers of what we've previously looked at doing.
You've finished. I look forward to seeing you on the ice rink, Councillor Boardman. Yes.
For the record, Councillor Chapman, you were very careful with your wording where you said that Councillor Clifford would be delighted to support this. Are you delighted to support this?
Right. Does anybody else want to contribute to the debate? Okay, so we're now at the end of the debate, and recommendations at paragraphs outlined earlier, 49 to 54. The recommendations are to note the activities planned for the Christmas 2022 celebrations and to agree the measures set out in this report with regards to energy efficiency. Can I have a show of hands for, please? Anyone against? Anyone abstaining? That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Agenda item 7, revision of statement of principles under the Gambling Act 2005. You can refer to pages 55 to 106. This item is for decision. Councillor Morwood, please can you present this item? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report before members, excuse me, to approve the revision of the statement of principles under the Gambling Act 2005. The recommendations are there in paragraphs 2 and 3. Basically, this is a statutory duty that we have. We review these principles every 3 years, and they're due to be reviewed this year. Paragraphs 7 to 10 outline the background there, the Gambling Act. So we are concerned with the regulations which are dealing with casinos, bingo, gaming machines, lotteries, and so forth. The amendments which you will find, the basic amendments are really minor from previous years, and they're outlined on page 95. We had to consult with a number of consultees, and the list of those consultees are on page 93, and we had a consultation between October the 6th and the 3rd of November, and no responses were received, so everybody's happy. So I hope members will approve the recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, would Councillor Lynch like to second this report prior
Happy
to the
to
debate?
second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Can I invite members to make any comments? Okay. Without debate, I'd just like to move recommendations at paragraphs outlined in pages 55 to 106. The recommendations are that the Council adopts and publishes the revised principles under the Gambling Act 2005, and that the Council determines that the statement of principles shall come into force 4 weeks after their publication. Can I have a show of hands for, please? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Page 8, agenda item 8, committee appointments. This item is for decision. Councillor Bradley, are you ready to present this item, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, in order to maintain political balance in the Council, there are a couple of changes proposed. One is for Councillor Kim Snape to take the seat on Overview and Scrutiny Performance Panel, Councillor Michelle Marinelle to take on the role of Council Champion for Mental Health Awareness, and there is a vacancy on the Equality Forum, which we are going to carry over, Madam Mayor, to the next meeting, which is in the December meeting, which is only 3 weeks away, and we will look to fill that position at that time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Wilson, you're happy to second
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
for debate? Can I invite members to make any comments, please? Councillor Levitt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank the Democratic Services team for their efficiency in effecting my transition from Labour to Independent, and to the Leader of the Council, Councillor Bradley, for the professionalism and dignity with which he's handled this process and my resignation of the Labour whip. Madam Mayor, I'll endeavour to be as brief as possible. I'd like to make clear that I leave the Labour group with no ill will towards any of its members. On the contrary, Madam Mayor, I have been moved by the support I've received from councillors, both Labour and Conservative, since my decision to become independent. You know who you are. You know what your words and deeds have meant to me. I'd also like to thank my constituents, my family and my amazing partner, who've all been immensely supportive since my decision to resign the whip. The decision to leave Labour was not an easy one, nor was it one I made in haste. I have endeavoured, Madam Mayor, to do all I can to prevent this day from happening. I tried to do all I could to heal the rifts that had emerged between myself and Labour colleagues. In leaving, I have sought to ensure that representing my constituents returns to central focus, as the first and foremost victims of party fallouts are the people we are sent here to represent. I'm happy to support the changing of committee positions proposed tonight. I congratulate Councillor Marinell for her appointment as my successor in the brief as this council's mental health champion. I know it is a role she is well suited for, where she will seek to build on the work started, as we've worked closely on a number of issues relating to mental health in her ward of Clayton East. I would not seek any other councillor to succeed me in that role, more than Councillor Marinell, and I hope that this whole chamber will endorse her and support her as our next mental health champion, Madam Mayor. The day I was elected as a councillor for Chorley East was one of the proudest days in my life. Who would have guessed in that bleak summer of 2020 that at the age of 21, I'd be chosen to represent the ward where I'm proud to have lived and grown up for all my life. Yet it would be hard not to feel, Madam Mayor, a bit like Lyndon Johnson did after leaving the White House, resigning to listening to Bridge Over Troubled Water on repeat, wondering endlessly where it all went wrong. I was with Labour and Labour was with me through some of the key moments in my development as a young man. Sitting my GCSEs, visiting the EU Parliament with thousands of other young people in the summer of 2018, sitting my A-levels, going to university, learning to drive and getting my first car, graduating from university, getting my first jobs and moving on to postgraduate study. But becoming independent was the right thing to do for my own well-being and for my constituents. It offered clarity and transparency at a time when my colleagues questioned my ability to continue representing their party in 2023. I had sought to achieve more as this council's first mental health champion, Madam Mayor, not least the formulation of a mental health strategy, which I know would have taken a number of years. I can appreciate the irony, therefore, that my final and most decisive act in that post was taking the steps necessary to look out for my own mental well-being. I believe we need to make an effort in Chorley to change the way we do politics. When I was elected in May 2021, I brought with me a commitment to work in a bipartisan fashion, as I believed then, as I do now, that all of us, regardless of political beliefs, come here to improve our borough and further the lives of our residents. My colleagues here on the opposition benches know I was never afraid to challenge them and stand up for the principles and policies that I believed in. Madam Mayor, we're members of one body. We should look out for each other regardless of whether we are Labour, Conservative or Independent. We should lift each other up, not tear each other down. We should each of us seek to make our neighbour a better councillor, to celebrate with them in their achievements, to be with them in their times of challenge and hardship. I also believe we need to embrace more young and working age people in this place, and that these cannot just come from the Labour Party. The best and most informed decisions happen when young councillors and experienced councillors come together to exchange ideas and advice. We cannot permit an environment where young people feel that they do not belong, where they will not be supported in their development, where the commitments and pressures of working life are not factored into their duties as a councillor. I believe we need to do better in being more tolerant of each other and respecting the diversity of our aspirations, beliefs and backgrounds. And above all, we should seek at all times for councillors who put residents' interests before their own. These are the tenets that I'll be committed to for the remainder of my term. During my last 6 months in office, I'll be committed to better representing the proud residents of Chorley East, the best ward in Chorley, and seek the changes in this council that will make a difference in their lives. I'll be holding this administration to account from this side of the chamber, but I also make clear when I support this administration and the work it seeks to achieve. There is far more that we can do for our residents, and I am committed to being the best councillor that Chorley East could hope for in the lead up to May 2023. Lastly, Madam Mayor, to my former colleagues in the Labour group, I say, farewell, friends, you'll be greatly missed. But I warn that the fate which has befallen me, the experiences I have had, could happen to each and every one of you. For those of you who continue to serve in this council longer after I've gone, I ask these things, that you always give your best, never be cruel, never seek revenge for a perceived slight, never hold grudges or resort to pettiness. Others may hate you, but those who hate you will never win, unless you hate them. Always respect the good intentions of your neighbour, even if you disagree with their opinion. Take pride in what this place can achieve when it sets its energies to bettering the lives of ordinary people. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Could I ask if there's any member wish to make further comment? Okay, we're now at the end of the debate on this proposal. The proposal is that Councillor James Devitt is now an independent councillor. Councillor Kinsney should take on the vacancy on the seat of Review and Scrutiny Foreman's panel. There will be a vacant seat on the Equality Forum for now, and Councillor Michelle Marinell is to take on the Council Champion for Mental Health Awareness. Could I just have a show of hands for, please? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Agenda item 9 is the exclusion of the public and press. This item is for decision. Can I have the proposal from Councillor Bradley, please?
Madam Mayor, can I move that we exclude the public and press for Part 2 papers? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Could someone second that proposal?
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Can I have a show of hands, please? For. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much for your attendance. You're most welcome. Any